Welcome in, everybody. We're drinking tonight. Let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Ray's Rewind with Bushman and Drew.
Jansen. That is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arrows Arena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles. But the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, Game 4 hero.
The sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome in, everybody. It is another episode of the Rays Rewind podcast, the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast on the Sick Media Network. I'm one of your hosts, Bushman, and of course, joining me as usual is Drew. Welcome in, everybody. We have got a kind of an impromptu show tonight, since it is the night of the All-Star game. The Home Run Derby was last night. Lots to talk about there. But of course, go to our YouTube page at the Sick Podcast, Rays Rewind. Make sure to hit that subscribe and notification bell when new episodes drop on the weekly basis. Welcome in, everybody. Drew, it's now the All-Star break.
Yeah.
The Rays are 48-48, back to 500 before the All-Star break commenced on Monday. The Home Run Derby did commence last night with a viral national anthem that took the world by storm. I think it's probably one of the worst ones I've ever heard in my life. So here's I missed the actual live version of it because I came in watching like the first round of the Home Run Derby. I didn't see the pregame stuff because I was still like kind of doing some stuff around the house. But I didn't really like look at the clip until like maybe early today, and then I kind of fast forwarded to see like what the bad parts were, and it was bad. It was like bad. I was like, what is she doing? And then come to find out, she was actually blackout drunk doing the national anthem, and she's going straight to rehab. She tweeted out a post saying, she's like, sorry, I was really drunk. I'm going to rehab, and I apologize to everybody. What were your thoughts on the national anthem last night? As I'm drinking a Florida Man beer tonight on this time.
There you go. I was doing the dishes. We had it on in the living room, just so my son could watch and just, to kind of see a little bit before the kids had to go to bed. And so I was doing the dishes, and so I wasn't really paying much attention, but then I started, it caught my attention. And I had not actually heard of the singer.
Either have I. I've never heard before. I didn't even know she was Grammy nominated at all. I didn't even know. I thought she was just somebody they got off the street.
They introduced her as a singer-songwriter, and they said they were 4-time Grammy nominated. And she started singing, and I said, I told my wife, I was like, I think she must be nominated for songwriting as a songwriter, not a singer, because this is.
Apparently, she's a country artist.
Terrible. Yeah, and my wife played a few of her songs. She's like, "Oh, you've heard this song, or you've heard of this. These are familiar." And they sounded familiar, but I think it was more about just the fact that a lot of country sounds familiar, rather than I actually knew her music. So yeah, I mean, it was awesome. That was the best. 2 minutes, whatever it is, it takes a minute and a half, 2 minutes to sing that song.
I've heard plenty of renditions of Star Spangled Banner, like from Roseanne Barr to Carl Lewis to Fergie, and this has got to be the most god awful rendition of.
So bad. I saw it live too, which was the best part. Because you rarely.
I get it. Look, singing the Star Spangled Banner in front of a ton of people on live TV is nerve wracking at best.
Big stadium. There's we were trying to explain it away to my kids. We were like, it's a hard song to sing. I'm not a singer. I'm not very good, so I don't know from experience. But I hear it's hard to sing. Mm-hmm. It's a big stadium. There's a lot of you have a hard sometimes.
The acoustics, you get started and the echoes and everything.
Like started off on the wrong note, and you're just SOL from there. So I did not put her being drunk on my card for why
I don't think
she was so bad.
A lot of people were tweeting out on Twitter last night about, hey, maybe Trisha Whitaker should have done it. Which she's actually a great singer. She's done the Star
Yeah,
Spangled Banner before at Tropicana Field, and she does a bang up
I
job.
think
So
she's the backup. If the singer gets sick, she is the backup.
it's the backup.
That's what I heard on the radio. That she was on Jay and Zach on 620 95.3 this past week, and yeah, I think she said that because they mentioned to her about singing the national anthem at the Trop, and yeah, she's the dedicated backup in case the planned
Listen,
talent
I
bails.
think the last game I was there, she sung it. Did a pretty good job, man. She's always done a really good job with the Star Spangled Banner. So hey,
less
MLB,
is more. Less is more with the Star Spangled.
If you need a singer in-house internally, go to Trisha Whitaker of the Rays.
Hey, real quick about her. How long do you think she'll be with the Rays? How long she's got? Because I think she's bound for bigger things.
I've always pondered that question too, because every single year, because I think the lifespan of a Rays sideline reporter is not that many years. I've seen from Kelly Nash to Emily Austin to now, I think Trisha is like the longest tenured Rays like sideline reporter that they've had.
Wasn't Laura her name's not Laura, it's Laura Rutledge now. She's on ESPN.
Yeah, she used to be. I
met her back in the day when she was doing college football recruiting.
But they have a shelf life of maybe a couple of years, and then they move on to something else. Like Trisha's been there forever, and now she's got the Apple TV gig, and I think every single year we all, especially in this field, like our podcasting field for Rays Media and something that we all brace about. Oh, it's going to be the year that Trisha maybe moves on to somebody else, another team, or moves on to something bigger and better, and get somebody new. So I don't know, man. That's a good question to ask. Maybe we should have her on the show and ask her that question about, hey, what's in your crystal ball of future?
Are you leaving this year?
Yeah, are you leaving anytime soon? Are you going to be going to bigger and better things with Apple TV?
My quick story about Trisha. She so when I had ACL surgery last summer, tore my ACL balling on the court, playing some basketball last March in 2023, and had ACL surgery over the summer after we moved to South Carolina. And my brother and dad, who are big baseball fans, my dad's a big Rays fan, they did that cameo thing. And unbeknownst to me, I get a text message or a video sent to my phone back when I had an iPhone, and it was Trisha Whitaker doing a cameo. They signed up for a cameo for her to, a video to send to me about my ACL injury and all this stuff. And so I, it was great. She did a great job with it. Really, really nice. And, of course they told her I was a big Rays fan and everything. Well, when we went to Baltimore, last fall, my son and we went to watch the Rays against Baltimore at the end of the season. And we were there early when the gates opened, so we went down by the dugout, and she was close by, so I just said hello, and I said, hey, you might not remember this, but a handful of months ago you did this. Oh, she goes, oh yeah, I remember. She goes, you're the only video I've ever had to do about that was because of an ACL surgery. So she said that was like a new reason, new prompting, and she said, so yeah, I definitely remember you. And awesome. Yeah, so she was great. She went to go find some baseballs and stuff for my son, who's was 6 at the time, and so yeah, she's great. I would love to have her on the show. I'll
work on it. Don't worry.
Yeah, dude.
We'll ask you that question too.
Pull your weight around here, Evan.
We'll ask you that question. How long is your shelf life with the Rays? Because you've been with the Rays for so long. Are you going to be moving on to bigger, better things?
She does a great job. She my favorite is that she always asks every question she asks, and this isn't a knock on her at all, because all journalists do something like this now. But whenever she interviews, if you listen to the press conference or in the locker room, she always says, "What'd you see there? Talk about what'd you see on this player? What'd you see there?"
I've never noticed that before.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's her phrase. What'd you see there? And now, next time you listen, you won't be able to not hear it.
I'm really hoping that the Rays make the playoffs, because she always gets doused with Bud Light. So I think, and what she told me on one of the early on my other shows is Bud Light or beer is actually good for the hair.
Yeah,
I did not know that. I did not know that.
I think if she moves on, and we I mean, we would love to see her stay. I think she does a great job, honestly, and it seems like the players really like her, which is
Well,
I
you
think
know what she should
knows.
stay. Drew, she should stay because obviously with the one of the biggest things that we got going on this week is the final stadium vote if it's going to happen. So if a new stadium is going to be built
It'd
in
be cool
St.
to
Pete,
have her.
she's got to stay. She's got to stick around to be
I,
there for the new stadium.
if she leaves, I could see her going to like MLB Network and getting like a show that
Yeah, I
she's
can see
like
that
a
too.
part of, kind of like a Lauren Shahadi type, like where she's leading something like that, because she would be great at it. I mean, Kelly Nash did something similar, I think, only for a short time, but
Yep.
yeah, we didn't mention this before when we were in the pre-show, meeting with our producer Jimmy about topics to talk about. But since we're talking about Bally Sports Crew, Dwayne Stats, again, another somebody that I would never want him to leave because I think he's great, and him and BA are awesome. I would think that Dwayne's probably going to try and see the new stadium, and then I think he would probably
Head on out.
he would either go out as the stadium's going up, like as they transition, or maybe go one season and then maybe bow out. That's just me speculating. I have no idea. I don't know Dwayne personally. Just given the fact that he's getting older and he's been doing it for what, like almost 30 years now, at least
Right.
just with the Rays, and even longer before then. Do you think that they will? What do you think they would do? I realize that's a big, kind of an open-ended question, but do you think that they would go after somebody like have Andy train because they have him doing the TV a lot, or do you think they would stay in house, or do you think they would bring in somebody from the outside? Because they always strike me as an organization that would try to like to hire from within. So like maybe a
To the
Rich
internals
Hollenberg
coach.
who does play by play, for ESPN. But I don't know.
That's a good question. I think when it comes up to that question is I think that I most of the time I do see them promoting and within internally.
Yeah,
So if they were going to make a broadcasting change, and Brian Anderson has been there forever, I think Brian Anderson would take over the Dwayne Stats role, and they would bring in somebody that's going to like complement him on the play-by-play. So they would look in, and I think they would look in house before they would go externally to bring in something to
yeah.
complement it. Like God forbid, like Dwayne Stats leaves, but I think when it's time to make that transition over to whoever takes over, I think Brian Anderson will go to Dwayne's spot as
You
like
think
number
Brian would
one.
do a play by play?
Maybe. Well, I mean, I don't know who. I don't think Freed would go to the television spot. I think he
You don't
wants
think
to. I
so?
think he would stay radio. He would stay radio.
I
So
think he does a great job when he's on TV.
honestly, man, I would see Doug Weckner in there. Weckner does a great job, and he
Yeah,
knows baseball. He's from
I
the
think
organization too. So
I
I
think
think.
they'd have to do a 3-man. That they need somebody with play by play. It would have to be like a play by play guy. Him and BA and Doug do the color former player angle really well.
So if you had for some
Rich,
breaking news, Shohei Ohtani crushed a home run in the All-Star game as we are recording this podcast. By the way, so Shohei's putting on a show so far.
oh wow! Before we got on, I saw it was 0-0.
Yeah, Shohei
And there was like no
just crushed.
hits, and then Juan Soto.
Yeah, Shohei just crushed.
3-run homer. Who off of who? Tanner Houck.
Yeah. So
Oh man,
let's
I hope
let's
I hope
let's
I hope Isak does something tonight. That's in
so
2
let's
hours.
get into Rays talk up into the All-Star game.
Yeah,
Like I said before, we're 48-48. We're at the 500 mark going into the All-Star break. I think there's a lot of momentum with this team too. And what we talked about before pre-show was, I think the one question that we posed is, how is this team going to do after the All-Star break? And these next two series are going to be really crucial about what they do at the trade deadline. Now, that I know there's a lot of talk about, hey, maybe we should trade a couple pieces like Eflin and Randy, get some pieces back just to look forward to 2025 because this team maybe not be built for a playoff run, or maybe this team should make make a push and trying to make a run for the playoffs because they're still kind of in the mix. They've been playing pretty good baseball the past couple of weeks aside from the Rangers series. So I wanted your take on that, Drew. What do you think? I mean, we're 48-48, been playing pretty good. So many what ifs at the deadline. If they're going to be buyers, if they're going to be sellers, if they're going to be a combination of both. Are they going to be maybe making a push for the playoffs, or are we just going to look ahead to 2025 because we've got so many our rotation is going to be out of this world when everybody's healthy coming back? What do you think they're going to do? Do you think these series coming up against the Yankees, Um, it's the Yankees and I think who else are we coming up? We're a 4-game
That's
set against the
Toronto.
Yankees. Yeah, so we got AL East opponents coming up against the Yankees and then Toronto Blue Jays. So these next two series are going to be really the telling of what this team does by the deadline. What do you think they're going to do? If they go on a roll against the Yankees and they play well against the Yankees the series before the All-Star break, where they took 2 out of the 3, and of course the Blue Jays are just kind of like in that they could be huge sellers by the deadline. If the Rays are above 500, really above 500 before the deadline, do you think if they're going to make a strong push for the playoffs, or do you think we're going to look ahead to 2025?
I mean, I think it could potentially be also dependent on, what some other teams in front of them do,
Right.
like the Red Sox,
The
especially.
Astros.
I mean, Astros, was it like Twins, Astros, Red Sox, and Royals?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, hey, if they come out and let's say in the first, they have 10 games in a row starting on Friday, because they got 3 against the Reds at home, and
Mm-hmm.
then they have a day off. And is the deadline the 30th?
It's the 31st, I think, is the deadline.
Okay, it is. Oh no, it's actually the 30th this year.
The 30th. Okay, it's the 30th.
Usually it is that last day of July. So
Okay.
they have, and so they play the Reds on Sunday, the 28th. They have a day off,
Yeah.
and then the 30th. So I think you could say like drop dead date is the 28th. So you have like 10 games. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, if it gets off to a bad start, right, they lose, 4 in a row out of the break, then okay, that doesn't really matter anymore. But you have 10 games to really prove it here. I mean, I think,
I'm looking at the schedule right now. I mean, like these next 10 games they're doable. Like they're
yeah,
doable series. I mean, the Yankees haven't been playing well. They're getting crushed on starting pitching. They've really just relied on their offense right now. The Blue Jays are the Blue Jays are where they're at. I mean, they're going to be probably big sellers at the deadline, and then Cincinnati's been playing great baseball. And then if it comes down to the wire at the deadline, I mean, you had that first game in the 2-game set against the Marlins. So
right.
I think if they are well above 500 by the 28th or the 30th, like I think they're gonna make some moves that maybe will kind of I wouldn't say turn heads, but maybe indicate that this team is, hey, I think we're gonna make a run at this. I think we're gonna try and do this just to see where we're at, and then.
Hmm.
But I don't think they're gonna sell big. I mean, I know a lot of people are saying Eflin's probably gonna get traded. You could probably get a lot from Randy. Out of those two guys, I think Eflin's probably going to be the guy that's probably going to be moved if he's going to be moved, because you never know. The Rays could probably make just 1 or 2 small moves and maybe do nothing else and just keep the core that they have right now if they decide to say we're going to go with what we go with and we're going to try and make a playoff run because there's so many games left. We could have one of those runs where we get hot and the rest of these other teams that are above us, which they're above us by maybe a couple of games, they may cool off and maybe we can take advantage of that. So I think I agree with you. I think these next couple of series coming up is really just going to define of what they're going to do this season. Now, like you said, if they starts off bad and they're falling behind in the standings, now it's time to wave the white flag and we're going to start to sell off pieces that are not going to be there for 2025.
Yeah, I mean, you got Garrett. They haven't faced Garrett Cole yet, which I realize he hasn't been great this year so far. He just had one of those seasons where, at the injury to start, like he's not. Now he was sharp on Friday, last Friday against the Orioles, so he might be coming back, whatever. But you got Cole, you got Nestor Cortez, who the Rays did well against last time, but he's much better at home this year. Marcus Stroman's always frustrating for the Rays to play against, and then Carlos Rodon, I think is cheeks, to be honest with you. But again, you're playing the Yankees at home at Yankee Stadium. It's always hard. So I mean, I think if you come out of there with a split or 3 out of 4, I think you take that. You say, okay, you come out with a split, you're still 500, depending on what the other teams in front of you have done. Let's say the lead is or the deficit's still 5.5 games. Maybe you get lucky and you still pick up a game, so it's 4.5. I think then you say, okay, we need to go on a run here against Toronto and Cincinnati. We need to go at least 4-2, maybe 5-1, and then then you could say, okay, well, we're not going to quote unquote sell. We think we really got a shot at this. To be honest, I think if they come out hot and they play well and they put themselves in a position to contend for the rest of the season, I think that would mean I think I could see them keeping Effin, like you said, because he is, if you really want to contend this year, and that's like the top priority, then you keep him.
Yeah, because
And
you,
so
'cause you really don't know. You really don't know how Springs is going to be when he
but
comes back, and then Rasmussen when he comes back, if he comes back. And I
and
think
that's why I
Leon's.
think if they came out strong, they would trade Littell.
Hmm.
I think Littell makes more sense in that scenario because then you got to open up a spot up for Springs,
Yep.
and Littell you can get some value for you. I don't think you're gonna get a whole lot for him, but you're gonna get. I mean, for the return on investment, it's going to be great, right? No matter what they do, no matter what they get
So,
back for Littell.
so Drew,
Um,
I'm looking at the Red Sox schedule because I'm looking at the standings for the wild card right now, and above us is the Astros, the Royals, and the Red Sox, and it's pretty much we're pretty much behind by a couple of games and a half. Looking at the
mhm,
Red Sox schedule, they come out after the All-Star break, three against the Dodgers, three against the Rockies, and then they come back home like three against the Yankees before the deadline.
yep.
So
They have a very hard schedule coming out.
they
Like
do,
the
which
whole like
which
several weeks after this break is
which is
very tough for them.
which is good for us because we gain ground on the Red Sox. We're further up in the wild card standing. So I think with the Rays where they're at right now, they're in a good spot. They've got a lot of momentum with them. They're coming out of the All-Star break. Just play like you were the last couple of weeks. Just
Mhm.
play like you were, and then you're going to be fine. Look, listen to me. I'm one of those guys, and I think you are too. Is I think we've talked about a lot of this team in the first 3 months of the season where they're not a playoff contending team, but now that we've really seen a lot of flashes of they're playing good baseball, why not make a run? Why not try and go for it and make it into the postseason? I would love to see that than them going. All right, I think we're going to look ahead to 2025 and we're just going to quit on the season. I'd rather have them try the best they could and try and make a run because that
Mhm.
tells me there's a lot of confidence in this team, even if they fall shy of the postseason this year, but they did what they had to do to make the moves to try and make that run, and they played good baseball up until that point of game 162. That shows me there's a lot of confidence going forward to 2025 instead of selling off a lot of assets to get a lot of prospects back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I yeah, I mean, I tend to think that they will still sell more than they'll buy because what I'm expecting is kind of more of the same. If they come out and win 2 of 3 in these series, or 3 of 4, or whatever, split with Yankees and win 2 of 3, I like it's going to be tough I think, with the way the Red Sox are playing and the Twins have been playing well, and the other teams in front of the Astros have really surged. Like they're not going to make up a ton of ground. Like it would be a very slow,
Yeah.
methodical pace for them to actually catch up and be in the playoff picture. So I still think that the most likely outcome is that they end up making trades and moving some pieces now for the sake of opening up spots for guys to come up
Yep.
that can still play, like that will keep the level of competition and the skill level of this team up enough that they can compete, but that they are still going to take advantage of the market and what they can get back in return for, what we hope would be the return is like impact guys, either, on the
I mean, their
team this
biggest. I
year
mean,
or next year.
the biggest need right now is help in the bullpen and then some offense help. That's
Catcher.
it. And yeah, and catcher, and
Uh,
catcher. Yeah.
I
Although
mean,
Alex Jackson had that multi-hit game, so
yeah,
that's a sign of things to
it,
come. Maybe you never
it's
know.
just so hard to predict. Because it really just depends on me. If some team comes and says, "Hey, we'll give you," like I was on one of the
I'm gonna
message
make an
boards,
offer you can't refuse for Randy Rosarina. I've got an offer.
yeah, or like
I've got an offer for
Esau,
Isak Paredes. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
like I saw somebody thrown around. What if the Mariners who need a lot of offense, they don't have any really good third baseman. Hey, they make a play for Esoc and give you I think Henry Ford. No, Henry Ford's the president. No, that's Gerald
No,
Ford.
he was the guy that made the cars. Henry
Yeah,
Ford.
that Ford. Thank you. Harry Ford is the catching prospect. He's a top 100 guy and another top 100 prospect for Esoc. I mean, I don't know. I would say, yeah, you take that, or if somebody says, hey, we're going to give you for Eflin and Randy, we'll give you X amount of players or these prospects, or whatever. Like, I don't know what the teams are actually going to offer. So it's hard to know, I think, in a vacuum, or it's hard to know what the market will bear, because that can just, how the Rays operate. They're not afraid to say, okay, hey, you're going to give us all this value. We'll take it and deal with the repercussions right now to be better off, down the road.
See, that's why I like the position that they're at, because they really control their own destiny of what kind of moves they want to make, because they almost have the deck of cards in hand going, okay, well, what cards do you need? Like, I've got whatever you want, but I need something from it. I need a big bet from you. Like, I've got all the cards in my hands. I need a big bet from you that I'm going to be able to give you the cards I need. So I like the position that they're at, because they can kind of control the market of who they're going to give up and who they want to take back. Because if you have all those playoff ready teams that are saying, hey, look, I need an extra starting pitcher and I need a third baseman that can hit. Well, the Rays are going to control the market going, okay, well, if you want these guys, I need this high value from it. And now the value on Isak is so high because now he's an all-star player. He's leading the team in offense right now. Eflin's I think in another rotation, he's probably like the third or fourth guy in the rotation, to be honest with you.
Him.
Yeah, which would be, I think, better suited for him to being the number one guy in this rotation. And when it comes to Randy, you've got a left fielder that is dynamic, and we've all seen Randy in the playoffs. He can definitely get heated up in the playoffs too. So if you're a team coming to the Rays, going, hey, I need these guys. If I'm the Rays, I'm going, well, this is what I'm commanding. This is what I need. I'm not gonna give these guys up for just pennies on the dollar. I want to sell high instead of selling low, which I think a lot of people are predicting that the Rays are doing, because of how they've been playing, and a lot of these guys have been struggling throughout the season, except for Isak and Rain's been kind of heating up lately. But I like where the Rays are at position wise going into the deadline, because they really just can kind of control their market of what they're trying to get back and who they can maybe give up.
They can drive a lot of what happens, because there's not really any names. There's not big names this year. I mean, Garrett Crochet is the one that gets thrown around a lot, but he's going to probably be in the bullpen at some point this season because of his innings limit. I mean, he's already way past his innings limit, or his innings high. And
well, let me ask you. At this point, we're 48-48, and we, after the break, they're in the mix, and by the deadline, where would you rather have them make a run for the playoffs, for that final wild card spot, or would you rather have them retool and reload for 2025 because of what's coming back?
Yeah, I think I'd rather, if it was really like my neck on the line, I would say I'd rather retool.
Okay.
Because I think deep down, I really don't think that this team is good enough, consistently enough, to make up what the deficit that they've put themselves in at this point. I think it's possible. I don't think it's the likely outcome. And so if I don't think it's the likely outcome, I think, now that being said, if I'm the Rays, I believe with the pitching they have coming back next year, they firmly believe they have a really great shot at contending next year. And I tend to agree. And if they've got money freed up because of the Wander, which we haven't talked about, I don't really want to get into that tonight. That's kind of an open and shut case right now. I mean, he's awaiting trial and everything, but the money's freed up because he got moved to the restricted list indefinitely. So, and we don't know what that contract situation is going to look like at the end of it all, but for now it's freed up. So, I would like to see them retool. I think deep down, I think that's what they should do. Because I just don't think this team is good enough to really compete for a playoff spot. I think it's possible they could catch fire and play really well, because we've seen it in flashes and spurts, and 2 or 3 games in a row where they play really well, they pitch really well, they've got timely hitting, defense is great, whatever, and then they just fall flat. So I think
I'm glad that you said that, because I'm going to take the opposing side. I kind of want them to make a run for it. Why not? I mean, baseball is. Why can't why not be romantic about baseball? So I I'm going to say why not? Why not take a chance and make a run for it?
The team, thinking back to past teams too, 2021 for me was the
The
year I
epitome.
was like they need to go for it, because I know Glasnow was out, but I wanted them to go out and get a starter that year. But that was like the epitome. The team was running. The
Mhm.
offense was great. They had a lot of young but really great talent, and you're like, all right, we just need like big
A
time
couple of
bat,
pieces.
like a really good veteran bat to come into this lineup and steady things out, and then a veteran presence in the rotation. Don't get me started on not re-signing Charlie Morton. That would have been, that guy. Anyways, I digress. But so them going out and getting like Nelson Cruz, like to me, that was like perfect. And I know it
Yeah.
didn't work out, but like I never have faulted them for that, because it was like everyone was fired up about it. It's like the right thing to do in that moment. 22, their offense was so bad. It was like, their pitching's great. I mean, they could go out and get a bat, but I don't know. It just didn't seem like the team was clicking. It's kind of a lot like this year. It felt
Yeah.
like they were just it was just really tough all season. Last year was, I think they could have gone for it. I know they kind of did with Savale, but like with the injuries to Springs and Rasmussen, you kind of felt like the ceiling, even though they were in first place for so long, the ceiling was going to be really hard to get back because of the injuries, and they had, were kind of falling off as the year went on. This year, I don't know. I think in my mind, like privately, just as I've thought about this team, and I don't think I've talked about this on the show yet, but like I've always kind of had in mind that like going into this year, I thought it was going to be hard. I thought it was going to be a tough year with the Wander stuff and just everything. And with the start we had last year, I knew the baseball gods would, um, regress to the mean with us. Uh, 2025, I've had in my mind that 2025 is going to be a big year for us. I don't know. It just feels like that's kind of the year. I feel like things, much like 2021 and even last year for a long time, like things are just going to click. Like we're going to have all of our pitchers back, and as of now, right? Like all the big pitchers back. We've got young pitching coming up with Bradley and Pepio being studs. You've got young talent coming up in the minors that's not quite proven yet, but like they'll be there. That's why I think if they retool, I don't want them going out and trading like Pete Fairbanks, Jason Adam. Like to me, that's not retooling.
To me, like all that talk about those two guys they're off the table. Like they're not. They shouldn't even be
Like
in a conversation
it's
about
it's the
them being
caveat for
traded.
me. Yeah. Like if
To
you're
me,
gonna sell today, if you're gonna sell this year, like it's because we think that we can make some
well,
smaller moves for next year.
and to me that says you're really giving up on the team. And those two guys are your 1-2 punch. And if you're gonna sell those guys, then you're really giving up on the season. And to me, like they shouldn't even be in the conversation. I've seen so many trade scenarios on X or Twitter or whatever about Jason Adam and P Fairbanks. I'm like, no, these guys aren't going anywhere. That's your
Like,
setup man and your closer, and you can
yeah.
flip flop them either way. Like you could flip flop those guys as the eighth or the ninth guy. So if those scenarios of where they're going to get traded because their value is high, and a lot of these teams are looking for bullpen help. These guys that's the Rays bullpen right there. Is your final
And,
innings guys with those two? They're not going anywhere. So that talk needs to be
and
shoved
just
away.
if you just think about next year's team too, because again, all that to say, I would love to see this year's team make a run. I really like a lot of the guys on this team, and they're a lot of fun to watch when things are going well. But again, next year, you think about like the bullpen, Fairbanks, Adam, this Uceta guy and Manny Rodriguez. They look
Yeah,
sharp.
look good. Yeah.
They look real sharp. And then you got Clevenger as your lefty. I think Poche. Like I could see them in my mind. The people that are eligible to be traded this year, if you think like, okay, we still want to make kind of a run this year, we think we're good enough to maybe sneak into the playoffs if we're still around close enough, but we don't want to sacrifice for next year. We want to try and maximize some value for the next year's team. I think you're trading guys that you feel like have an obvious replacement behind them. So that X's out Fairbanks and Adam, in my opinion. Plus the
Mm-hmm.
contract situation. Adam's still going to be affordable even with arbitration next
So
year.
is Pete. So is Pete.
And Pete makes the exact same money this year or next year as he does this year. So why wouldn't you keep him around? So to me, there's no obvious replacement for either of those. They're your lockdown back of the bullpen guys. So if you think you're going to compete, those are two guys you need next year on your team.
I
Pitching,
100% agree on that.
starting pitching. I mean, that's why it makes sense. Like, okay, either Littell or Eflin
Are
because you can
the two?
slot
Or,
in.
I mean,
You can
even
slot
if
in.
it comes to it, you could probably like sell them both at the deadline because of what you got coming back. I mean, you got McClanahan coming back; he's going to be in full health. You've got Springs,
Yeah.
Rasmussen,
And
you've got Pepio, you've got Bradley, and you've got Boss. I mean, that's a 6-man rotation, Drew.
yeah.
6-man
Anybody out,
rotation.
and then anybody outside of Boz. I mean, Boz, Pepio, and Bradley obviously aren't going anywhere. So that leaves
No.
Eflin and Littell, but you have obvious replacements even just this year. If you're like, hey, we still think we can compete.
And,
Okay,
and,
great.
and Drew, you could have money left over from this year too, with whatever money's freed up from Wander's contract. You can go out and maybe get another veteran starter to be
That's
along to be an innings eater too.
yeah. I mean, I would say I would rather have Springs in there over Littell. So like, if we
Yeah,
trade Littell
me
and get
too.
any return for him, I mean, given like I said, what they got him for, which was nothing, the
Hmm.
return on investment, you're already making way more on him than you ever thought you would.
Plus,
So
you can go out and get like a veteran big bat to help out with the offense,
yeah,
which
and I mean, and then if they trade Eflin because of the salary jump, he goes up to 18 million next year. I understand it. I wouldn't be
mhm.
against them trading Eflin.
Either am
I
I. I
think
wouldn't be
I
against
think
either.
they could get a
If
good
they made
they
a
could get a
deal,
decent return.
if they made a deal at the deadline for him, I wouldn't be shocked and I wouldn't be disappointed because I think we all kind of know, like, look, he's making a lot of money next year. Like, get top value out of him now while you can, instead of like waiting till next year to see how he is. I would be mad at it. I think a lot of people too are like, well, Eflin's probably one of those guys that's going to be traded at the deadline, and I think
Yeah,
a lot of people are just kind of accepting that right now.
if he gets traded, I would love. It really is about the return for me.
Yeah,
Not
me too.
for every if they not for every guy they trade, but if they trade Eflin, I would want to see at least one guy that's close to the big leagues coming back, preferably at a position of need, like catcher or
Mhm.
something. That to me would make things a lot easier to stomach about with him leaving. I also, part of me though, it's like I would hate to trade him because I just respect the fact too that like he was a Rays fan growing up. We haven't had many of those players come through, right? Like that grew up in the area. They idolized Evan Longoria. He was a huge Rays fan growing up, went to games. He gave the Rays an opportunity to match the Red Sox offer in free agency and said, I'm going to the Rays. I'm getting the exact same money from the Rays. I'm going there. And
Yep.
like I love that. And we haven't gotten that much as a franchise. So I would hate to turn around and just trade him. But again, it's all about the return and what the market. But like it's
I
guys
mean,
you can see as a
hopefully, hopefully
replacement
it's not
for.
like hopefully it's not like the David Price trade where we got back Drew Smiley and Willie Adames.
Well, yeah, Willie was great, but I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
he
he was
wasn't. He's
great when he
not.
went to the
He,
Brewers.
yeah, he is. I mean, people look at Willie like I can't believe we traded him. Again, he was not doing what he's doing now, and I don't know if he ever would have because he couldn't hit in Tropicana Field. But again, and
The
you,
lights, it's the lights, they blind me. It's the lights.
and he's a great teammate guy though. You can't. That's tough
I
to
know.
lose that. But like you extend it down to the position players. Who are the guys you can trade that have obvious replacements? I mean, Ahmed Rosario is easy for me. I think he's great. I think if you, regardless of if you're contending or not, I think you say, all right, let's see what we can get for him because you have so many guys in the minors. You can bring up Curtis Mead. I mean, I would love to see Caminero finally get up here with the team. You got replacements for him. Brandon Lau's the same thing. I don't, you don't have necessarily that obvious left-handed bat that you can bring in to fill that void. But Richie Palacios, basically, that would just free up more opportunities for him to play.
Yep.
And I, so like, but then you go to like Randy. I that's the one that's really tough because I don't think you have an obvious replacement for him.
See, with me,
Um,
I think he's gonna be here. I don't think he's gonna go. I don't think he's gonna go anywhere. I know the
yeah,
value of him, especially with a lot of teams looking for a left fielder that is definitely dynamic in the playoffs, and we've seen that in past playoffs, especially in the 2020 World Series or the 2020 playoffs. Going through that run, I think his value and who you're going to replace him with, the Rays don't really have a replacement there at left field. So I don't. I know there's a lot of trade talk around him. I don't think he's going to go. I think he'll stay.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, and I feel like his name is the one that's floated around the most.
Yeah.
The national articles. I just, I know Yandy gets floated out there. I think Yandy's a guy. The only reason you would get rid of Yandy is because the return's good enough, and you just really want to open up spots. But see, like I almost feel like, to be honest, and I don't know how popular of an opinion this would be or unpopular. I'd rather like if we're just talking about like next year, you give me one guy on the team. I would rather have Yandy over Isak. Because in my mind, like
I see where you're going, because all of it, if you keep Yandy, you let Paredes go, that frees up a spot for Junior.
Yeah, and I mean, like I would think Junior coming up, I think is going to be. I mean, you hope he would have similar production to what Isak's doing now, and then first couple of years, and then is able to kind of take off from there. Yandy's a guy. I get he's getting older, but he's such a great like table setter at the top of the lineup, and I mean, and I get Isak's been great. All that to say, I hope both of them are on the team next year. I'm just saying, Yandy's name gets floated around as a trade option. You can shift Isak over to first. He doesn't look good over there. I don't know. Yandy's a tough one for me to say.
Yeah, but Drew, you can maybe even have him as your primary DH.
Yeah, Yandy, like, so
have Isak be your primary DH, then he doesn't have to be in the field, and all he has to do is just hit, which he does.
Yeah. So to recap, you think who are the players? And I'm sure we'll talk more about this. Who knows? Maybe my next recording early next week, when we get back together, there might have been another trade. So all this will be for nothing. But who are the players you think are going to be
dealt?
What would you say?
I think the ones right now that are going to be dangled like carrots are Eflin, probably Littell, and I would say the one position player that I think that's probably going to be dangled and probably going to get called about and maybe get dealt would probably be Isak, because of just the value where he's at. But I don't think he's going to be dealt in a trade. I mean, the trade's got to be the value of where we're going to get it back. It's got to be mind blowing to make the front office say, okay, we're going to trade Isak because we're getting so much back. But I think if there's one position player that I think that might go, is probably Brandon Lau.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think so too. So I think one of Eflin or Littell, I think you could see both of them moved if things don't go well. Yeah. Because you could always just bring up somebody like Tyler Alexander or something, to fill that void until Rasmussen's ready to go.
It also depends on where they're going to be at in the next week and a half.
Yeah,
it's all going to depend on where they're going to be at.
I think Ahmed Rosario should be an easy trade candidate just to see something you get back for him. Brandon Rosario and Lau are the two position players I think could be dealt, or that I would say I'm predicting that they're being dealt. I think Randy's probably the next highest for me just because of the attention and the return that they would get. That's hard for me to admit though, because I'm very biased. I love Randy, so I don't want him to go. And then at least one of Eflin or Littell, depending. I think that's just more dependent upon team situation, or market, what the market bears. And then in the bullpen, I really don't.
I don't see
anybody unless it's like a Poche, like a Colin Poche, or they just dump like Sean Armstrong on somebody or something like they don't. I truly believe that if they really want to contend next year, they don't get rid of Fairbanks or Adam. If they get rid of any of them, it would have to be Adam. Like Fairbanks to me is a non-starter if you're trying to contend next year. But I think both of them stay.
Either one of those guys, if you want to keep your back end of your bullpen into next year, especially if you're looking towards 2025 with the rotation that you get coming back.
Yeah.
With that like possible 6-man rotation, if you want to do a 6-man rotation, like you keep those two guys there as your back end, relievers. No, they're not going to go anywhere.
Just go out and Rays just need to go out and win.
Yeah,
every game next week, and then it doesn't matter. Then we can get more excited about who they could bring in.
All right, guys. We want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I think that's going to do us here for another episode of the Rays Rewind podcast, the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. Once again, I'm your host, El Bushman, and my co-host, Drew. We'll see you guys next time. Make sure to go to the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind YouTube page and hit that subscribe notification bell when new episodes drop. We'll see you next time on the Rays Rewind podcast. Peace.
See you.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind with El Bushman and Drew on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.